NBA DFS show with Jon Impemba and James Grande.
What is going on, FA Nation? Jon Impemba here with James Grande. Welcome into the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS Playbook Show. We are here for Friday's 8-game main slate over on DraftKings. You play over on FanDuel. You're looking at 5 games over there. We got a 7 p.m. start time over on DraftKings. Runs you up and through the 10 p.m. hour. James, you were on the playbook. We talked about it on the show this morning. A lot of injury news that we were waiting for. We expected maybe we would get some news throughout the day, and instead we've gotten none of the news. So maybe within the next hour during our show today, we'll get some lineup updates. Otherwise, if you're playing on tonight's slate, make sure you're hanging around your phone. Make sure you're hanging in the Discord. You have your notifications turned on because there could be a lot of movement come your DFS lineups around the 7 p.m. hour here. We're given the players that are listed as questionable this evening. Welcome all of you who are here in the stream. Coach Chris in here early, back to get the 100K, he says. Happy to have you with us here, Coach Chris, and all of you who are joining in. If you're just lurking around, throw a comment in the comment section. Click the like button. Subscribe if you haven't done so already here. Help support the channel. A free way to help support the channel here over at Fantasy Alarm. James, how you doing, my friend?
It's Friday, John. I was looking for an opportunity to pull up the smile through it
Again.
Yeah. Figured we don't dip our toes again. If those that caught it, they caught it, right? If you saw the podcast this morning, then you saw the smile through it. I still feel the same way, John, because you mentioned like the only thing that's happened is more potential outs, right? DeAndre Ayton downgraded to questionable. Gary Trent downgraded to questionable, and not John Concher, Jake LaRavia downgraded to questionable. Like, oh, sorry, Taurean Prince on his birthday decided he's going to take the day off. That's the only news we've gotten today. So it's only gotten worse for us. Brandon Ingram, we found out is going to miss a couple weeks, avoided serious injuries. So good for Ingram that he avoided something serious. Good for the Pelicans for their playoff run. But they're on the slate tonight. Only team on the second leg of a back-to-back here. So it's going to be an interesting slate. Like you mentioned, it's a busy one. Like probably super busy after the lock because you have the 2 games at 7. You don't have the 7:30 window where like typically we'd get something. We go 8 and then we jump to 3:10 p.m. games. Like there's no 9 o'clock window. The 8 news is in that late window. The Lakers news is in that window. So it's going to be a busy night.
We'll at least know the Celtics news because it's a 7 p.m. game.
We will know the Celtics news. We don't know. We will know who's starting for Detroit because there was some very strange ownership coming into Detroit this morning. And it just was updated over at fantasyalarm.com. It has been depressed a lot since. So like people realize like, oh, I can't be this crazy. But you know, if you were planning to have a movie night with your family or something along those lines, you know, still stay hip to your phone and get yelled at by your significant other because you're on your phone, even though it's for work and all that good stuff. But, you know, I digress. 8-game slate. Let's get into things here.
Yeah, breaking it down here for all of you. Again, with the 8 games, appreciate you popping in. Toronto Dave throwing his alarm basketball in there. Raptors are home today against the Thunder. They're home against the Thunder here, but not 17-point home underdogs. That's one of the highest we've seen in the NBA this year.
It's only gotten worse. It's only gotten worse since we did the show last night.
Yeah, so it's a 230 total in that game, but they are 17-point home underdogs. Boston, Detroit, 14.5. You'd think this is like an NFL matchup here. 14.5 and 17-point spreads kicking us off at the 7 p.m. hour. Miami giving 3.5 at a 208 against New Orleans. Cleveland, Minnesota giving 7, 207 total there. Memphis, San Antonio giving 6, 216.5 total there. Indiana versus Golden State at 10 p.m. Golden State giving 5, 240 total in that one. Clippers, Portland getting 14, 216 total. And then Sixers, Lakers giving 7.5, 225.
To Toronto Dave's looking at Toronto Dave, he probably doesn't lose in this situation because like Toronto, if they lose to SGA and Lou Dort, right? Two Canadian national players. Like, it's a win-win for Toronto, Dave. Don't. I did that this morning. It was just Shea. Salute to Lou Dort, also Canadian.
What's the? I mean, and honestly, that those 17 points, those are American odds. Like, what's the conversion rate? Honestly, it might be a little bit closer in Canadian. So, anyways, that's
a good one.
Let's get into it. Point guard is SJ up top, 10-5. Halliburton 9K, and we talked about it. Only 2 guards up over 9K. Then he jumped down into Maxey, Curry, Harden, and Cunningham in the 8K range. Where are you when it comes to point guard tonight? Are you paying for SGA in a 17-point spread game here?
I mean, we saw it the other day. They were double-digit favorites at home against Utah, right? And it played out pretty well for the side of, if you played this game, you got almost full complement of minutes from everybody. It probably would have been full complement if not for the Chet fourth quarter. If you think that Toronto has any chance, which if Gary Trent sits, I mean, I'm not sure how much of a chance they have, but if you do believe that Toronto can keep it close, then SGA obviously has a ceiling going back home. So their first game went to overtime. He almost triple-doubled. He went for almost 70 fantasy points. And that was in OKC.
February 4th.
And the minutes in that game were crazy for everybody. Obviously, because overtime, but like, it just was. I mean, if this is competitive at all, SGA is elite. What's up, Jimi Hendrix? Salute to you from the grave. Tyrese Halliburton in tournaments is very interesting. It was interesting. I pointed it out on the morning show, like 9 for 13, only 3 3-pointers. That's obviously been a concern of everyone's, I'd say, that he can't make threes anymore. Is it mental?
He didn't take more shots, though. That's where my concern is. I'd like to see him take less threes, but still take more shots.
Only 26 minutes. Didn't have to play the fourth quarter. So there was a whole shift, or maybe a whole quarter, right, left to play, where you didn't need.
And maybe he would have jacked up 6 more threes,
Right, right. It's fair. Fair point. But I do think he's interesting in tournaments. I think Maxey's fine in tournaments. Cannot get worse than what it was. Lakers defense has been quite bad. Sixers have been playing so slow, and the Lakers have not. Lakers are 11th in pace, Sixers 29th. So if you want to play the pace up game, I'm okay getting to Maxey. Steph, look, Chris, it's like we've tried to capitalize on bounce back games before from Steph. It just hasn't always paid off. Like, he has a ceiling. Get Steph Curry, right? Always
with
ceiling.
Chris Paul in the lineup, he just can't. It's few and far between.
And Draymond. I mean, both of them. We've said that all year, right? Like, when they're both, it's like score or bust, right? Like, big scoring outputs or bust almost.
Yeah, it's weird because like it's like the ball gets taken out of his hands. I mean, Chris Paul had 14 assists in that game.
Yeah.
So if he's not running the offense and being able to do these, pick and pops, and it's not that the ball's not in his hands, but how many games? And I know it's only 24 minutes, but like only 9 shot attempts. We're used to seeing 9 shot quarters out of Steph Curry, not 9 shots in 24 minutes here. So, something's off. He's getting older. He's still good, 27 points per game, but like
still great. Yeah, he's still great. It's just,
who knows? Maybe he's just cool. Not everybody's LeBron. Like it just.
Listen. Well, hold on. Time out. He is having a great season.
Yeah.
Like, great. Let's not short him. 27, 5, 4.5 on 45, 40, 90. Like,
sure.
Great season. But it's a different team, I'd say. Just like they haven't had a Chris Paul in the past, right? Like, ultimately. So, like, if you want to play him in tournaments, this is the best game on the board in terms of like competitiveness plus total. So if you want to play him. Just, we've seen I think there's better value options on today's slate that
the scoring has been great this year for him, but the fantasy points, obviously you need the secondary numbers, and they've been inconsistent at best this season out of him.
Agreed on that front. I was more so just talking about Steph when we're making the comparison to LeBron. Like in terms of greatness, he's still been like super great.
Yeah, he's a good shooter for sure.
Scorer.
Shooter, scorer. Same difference.
Scorer. No.
He only, might as well be. Yeah. Is Ray Allen a great scorer or a great shooter?
Scorer. Ray Allen started his career as a dunker.
Yeah. Developed into more of a shooter. Anyways, Harden's below him. Cade's at 82. I don't think we're going in either of those two there.
Tournaments.
Yeah. Mid-tier. Garland, White, LeVert, Vassell, Russell, Rozier.
So White gets the biggest bump with only Drew Holiday up the floor. Guess surprise, huh? It's a shocker. Some would say that Derek White is good when somebody's off the floor. We don't know who is actually playing for Boston tonight. If I had to guess, like I say all the time, I always assume Tatum plays, and then everyone else is questionable to me. Everyone else is like a true questionable. I just assume Tatum, and then if everyone's out, Derek White is going to maybe be one of the highest rostered plays of the slate. He should garner ownership regardless.
You'll get one of Porzingis and Horford because it's the front leg of a back-to-back. So one of them will sit.
Yeah.
If not both, but one of them definitely will sit.
Yeah, Chicago tomorrow, right? That's the second leg.
Chicago tomorrow, double big maybe. Maybe they sit them both and do the double big lineup tomorrow.
True. Ooh, yeah. And then that'd be fun. Little Drummond Vooch action.
Right, because Drew Holiday probably would sit out and they just play Brown, Tatum, White, Porzingis, Horford against Drummond, Vucevic.
Granted, Brown and Tatum don't sit on it back. One of them.
We'll see. I with you the White for sure. Gary Trent
out. Frozen.
What?
Back? You back?
I don't think so. Am I frozen? Am I here? You hear me?
For a second. You're good.
All right. Well, Gary Trent's out.
That's so sad. I can't wait to look at. Let's refresh the line movement. Let's see if we get a bit. Line's down. It's up to 8. No, it hasn't moved. But I mean, dude, I want to play that game just for the record. I want OKC exposure. That's why.
All right. So no Barrett, no Quickly, no Trent,
no Barnes, no Pirtle. So here's your lineup.
Yep.
It's Brown, Grady Dick.
Yep.
Agbaji, Olynyk. I assume you see Nwora potentially. You could potentially see Jamias Ramsey, who's kind of been playing well off their bench. That would be my assumption for their starting lineup. I would say you see the same 4 plus either Nwora or Ramsey. Okay. If you just go by the lineup that Toronto had, it would be Ramsey, right? Probably as your starter. You can play Bruce Brown off the ball if you wanted to play Freeman Liberty. Fortunately, John, 7 p.m. So we will know. We don't need to speculate too much. I guess we do now have to talk about Toronto a little bit more and what their what the exposure we're going to want, if any, because I think Darko played a lot of guys, but he's one of those rare coaches. Olynyk played 30 minutes in a 40-point game. Gary Trent played 32 minutes in a 40-point game, right? He still kind of played his guys last game, and that's not the first time he's done that. So it is worth mentioning, $5,900 Bruce Brown, point guard, small forward.
Yeah.
If this game stays competitive at all, he's going to score 40. He's going to score 40 fantasy points.
Sure. Value point guards here. Again, Trey Jones is 58. You mentioned Troy Brown. McCollum 65 in the mid-tier as well. Could have some guys out for the Pelicans here today. Scoot Henderson's 54. Peyton Pritchard's $5,100. Where are you going with some value plays?
Yeah, we know. I mean, Ingram's out for so we know it's just basically McCollum is needed. You could definitely get to McCollum. I do think Bruce Brown's in play. If that game is at all to stay competitive, he's a large part as to why. Trey Jones coming off a monster game. He's been about a 0.9 fantasy point per minute, 0.9 fantasy per minute guy since Wemby entered the starting lineup. I looked that up today. Since December, only Wemby over a fantasy point per minute in that lineup. You can get to Scoot even in a blowout. He played a lot of minutes. There's so many potentials here. You could play Chris Paul if you wanted.
Yeah.
I found this really interesting, John. Josh Giddey played 41 minutes in this matchup against Toronto earlier in the year. This feels like a pretty good Giddey spot, just like with the way Toronto runs their like. He could be on the court for a lot of minutes here, and he's also played 22 plus and 3 of 4, which in theory I'm happy about 22 plus, sure. But he's been really good from a fantasy perspective on a per minute basis, like really, really good lately. So I do think this is kind of a good Josh Giddey spot. Scoot is interesting. We saw Scottie Pippen return, play 27 minutes off rip. If he starts with Desmond Bane out, I think there's definite interest against the Spurs. 33
he's getting some
fantasy
ownership
points.
love too. Among the point guards, he's like the third, fourth highest rostered point guard tonight.
Yeah, I mean, he was. I mean, off rip, 27 minutes, like almost double.
Him or Pritchard tonight, if people are out for Boston.
I mean, if everyone's out for Boston, I'd be hard pressed not to just click Boston and figure out the rest, right? Like it's especially with the way Pritchard scores the basketball and has been scoring, and honestly, peripheral stats too. Pritchard has been surprisingly good everywhere, but the threes, everything's been great. So it would be Pritchard. If everyone's in, but Drew Holiday and Pippen's starting, I would pick Pippen over Pritchard.
Okay.
But I'd still be okay if you landed on Peyton. If Memphis doesn't have like Bane, Pippen, or Goodwin, we talked about DeJoun Giroux would probably step into a starting role if like Concher also was out, because he's also, I mean, Memphis just dealing with more injuries than we can probably than you can keep up with if you're not paying any attention to the NBA. So there's a ton of potential value, and obviously what if Freeman Liberty randomly starts, right? He played 21 minutes last game. There's a lot more that just opened up with Toronto with Garrett Trent.
I agree. Any other value point guards for you? You would do the Patty Mills dance if he ends up starting again?
No, I think there's plenty of other value, especially with Bam in, especially with Jimmy back. Like, I don't think we need to mess around with Patty Mills.
All right. Going on over to the shooting guard position then. Anthony Edwards questionable at 97. Jaylen Brown, as we talked about, questionable at 87. Paul George, 84. Doesn't mean it's doubtful. Brendan Ingram's already out. Where are we going when it comes to the top tier shooting guards here today?
You can play any of them. I don't know if any of them are priorities, right?
Sure.
Like you can. Edwards is elite tournament upside in good or bad matchups. We just saw this matchup. He had a bad game, but played 42 minutes.
Ooh, Jason Tatum out.
Oh,
Jaylen Brown available. So we're getting it. No Tatum. We have Brown. Porzingis is in.
Ooh.
So Horford, I would imagine, is out.
Unless they go double big.
Yeah.
Okay, so Holiday, Tatum, and we're gonna get the Hauser news. I assume available.
In.
Yeah, I assume Hauser available. Okay, so no Tatum, no Horford, no Holiday. Correct?
Yeah.
That's the news we got.
Yep.
No Tatum, no Horford, no Holiday. So obviously, Jaylen Brown and Derek White.
Yeah.
And depending on your feelings on Porzingis are your three immediate and then the Pritchard news is obvious. Dude, I'm gonna say this, okay? Derek White, when Jason Tatum, everyone please, because he's always low-owned. Derek White, when Al Horford, Jason Tatum, Drew Holiday are off the floor, John, everybody listening around the world, 12% usage increase. 12. Not 1 through 11. 12.
This was the case against was it Milwaukee Tatum sat, or was it the Detroit game that Tatum sat?
It was the Detroit game where he triple doubled.
He did. Okay, Derek White triple doubled in that game.
Dude,
so just
12% usage bump, 31% usage, 1.37 fantasy points per minute in 200 minute sample. Jaylen Brown,
the same lineup that they played against Detroit last time.
Exact lineup, but we'll probably get more Porzingis minutes.
Sure, and I think Hauser missed that game, right?
Was that the Hauser? Was that the
Hauser Washington game? Let's see, Boston, Detroit, 18.
Was that the Hauser 3 game?
No, that was against Washington.
Okay, then yes, he was out.
All right, so the starting lineup, they didn't double big. They started Cornette. They went Pritchard, Brown, Porzingis, White, Cornette in that game, but there was no Sam Hauser. So
and now Detroit does not have. Did they have Isaiah Stewart in that game?
They did, yeah. They started.
And now they do not have Isaiah Stewart. So I don't know if it's going to be like a chain reaction type thing where one submits their lineup and then the other one submits their lineup. But I'd assume Hauser starts over Cornette. Maybe I'm misreading that situation, but that's typically been the direction. So I think the only thing I would change in that lineup would be the Cornette for Hauser swap.
This was the weird Porzingis rotation game.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Minutes and then didn't play again. He played the entire third.
Yes, but that's what I was saying. So like it's the same team, but Porzingis played 28 minutes last game, right? So I don't know. I still am like a little hesitant to get to Porzingis. Like I understand it.
Porzingis had such a weird. So he didn't play at all in the second quarter.
No,
he didn't play. He played just 6 minutes in the first quarter, and then he played the entire third and the first 3+ minutes of the fourth. So he played 15 straight minutes in the second half.
And there was no reporting on it. Like he played 6 minutes, never returned, and then Underdog just tweeted out like Kristaps Porzingis starting the second half.
Yeah.
And then before last game, Mazzulla came out and said that he's not facing any limitations, right?
Right.
That's true, but not, because he still played 28 minutes in a competitive game.
Mm-hmm.
I just be like, he's been the best fantasy point producer when Tatum's been off the floor on a per minute basis.
I mean, he had 38 and 21 minutes against
right.
So,
and like he could just nuke them, but are you fully confident Kristaps Porzingis gets to the 28 minutes again?
No, but he would definitely put Durant in a blender in this game, like without
absolute blender. I think just circling back like to the Pritchard discussion now that Tatum's out, like Pritchard is a as long as he's starting and as long as Boston doesn't ruin our we're at 7-10, they decide that he's not starting. Peyton Pritchard would be an elite value.
Even if he comes off the bench, though, do you think there's 25+ minutes there?
I think it's more. Right. Just based on how he's played and who's out. They're missing 3 of their key rotations.
So you're comfortable playing Pritchard no matter what.
Yes.
This will be again. This is going to again be a spot where you probably play Pritchard off the bench. Everybody will play Hauser if he's in the starting lineup, and then you have to sort of run that gauntlet, or you're just going to play them both in your lineup. Coach Chris wants to know: would you play Brown and White together? I mean, Jaylen Brown did perfectly fine in that game as well. He went for 46 fantasy points. So
now I think we talked about this. Do you remember? Sometimes the instant reaction is play the next star. And Derek White had 60 in a triple double.
Derek White is the next star. People just don't realize that.
He's the first star.
Jaylen Brown's the highest paid player in the NBA. So.
I know. But I'm just saying, like, the instant reaction is like, oh, Tatum's out, got to play Brown. And that's not a bad reaction. But also, when you look at, like, well, I could also just play Derek White for $1,000 cheaper, and he has better, like, everything for him is on even playing field or better than Jaylen Brown. So, like, this could be a situation. You play both. You pick one. Maybe we actually see Derek White usurp Brown in terms of ownership today, because that hasn't been the case when Tatum's been out. My number one Celtic is Derek White. That is my number one play, Derek White. I would even put Pritchard 2, John. How about that? Is that bold? I don't know. Pritchard 2, Brown 3. That would be how I'd rank them. Hauser 4, Porzingis 5. Yeah. And it's I don't want to put Porzingis 5 because again, he's at 1.5 fantasy points a minute.
Okay, Porzingis can get you what Hauser and Pritchard can do in 20 minutes.
I know. It's just like I'm not confident in the Porzingis minutes, and that's something I've been talking about for like a couple weeks. Like
we've talked about it. Yeah. They have an 11-game plus lead in the East. They have no reason to be pushing Kristaps Porzingis more than 20 minutes a night at this point. He played the 28 minutes though against Milwaukee. So, and he's definitely not playing tomorrow. So there is a chance that they do extend him a little bit here tonight.
All right, then if he's extended, he's second. Okay. If you think that Kristaps Porzingis can get 30 minutes, he's second behind Derek. Sure. But
I don't know.
I know that's
I think he could get to 28.
It's close.
It's close, right?
Tie for second.
Yeah.
I'll settle on tie for second for
okay. We were already locked into Derek White Reed pretty much almost no matter what here. So
yeah, cover of the morning show.
Yeah. He's been all over Twitter for us today. Like we were not moving off of the Derek White play. Yep. Other guys in the tier though. I mean, again, Karis LeVert's down here. He's been pretty damn good.
Yes.
Like nothing to take away from what hey, guess what? Donovan Mitchell's not there, and Karis LeVert's out here just knocking them down. So, any worries about Minnesota as a matchup for LeVert?
Sure. I mean, again, that they had like kind of a banger, like a great basketball game. There was 217 points, wasn't great, but I think there was overtime. I want to say there was overtime in that game. It's fine. I mean, Minnesota also could be shorthanded. We don't know Gobert's status. We don't know the Naz Reid status.
Naz Reid, yeah.
So, I'm okay getting to LeVert. I mean, he's not like, again, if I'm picking between him and Derek White, there's a priority there.
Sure. All right, 6K tier. Trey Murphy's are currently, I imagine the next update will change that, but he is currently our highest projected rostered player on the slate.
He's starting to figure it out here, right? We're starting to get more consistent Trey Murphy scoring days. I'm good if that's where you fall. I think there's mid-30s minutes here without Brandon Ingram nightly. We know he starts. Anytime anyone's out, he just starts. Like that's just their plug. So definitely interested in some Trey Murphy.
Okay. What else do we got here?
I mean, Clay in tournaments is, I would say, a little bit interesting.
Sure.
A little, not like overly interesting, but like he's been pretty good. Should be full minutes. Aaron Nesmith, a little bit interesting. I like the eligibility for Hauser. We have not gotten shooting guard small forward Hauser in maybe all year. Like again, it's been a running joke between you and I that like I always play Peyton Pritchard on nights where Hauser chalk happens and he's just hit. And we also like he was bad as a starter earlier in the year, and that
earlier in the year he would start and not hit a shot. Right?
And you would suggest him every day. You'd be like, play Sam Hauser off the bench. You'd be like, and he would hit he'd be like 4 of 6 from 3, like 24 fantasy points at like 3,800. And then he would start the next game 1 of 7, 11.
Wouldn't have any rebounds. Like it just wouldn't work for him. But I mean, the dude came into Washington with a mission.
Yes.
Knocked down 10 of 13 from 3. Only took 13 shots. He's gonna mostly only shoot from 3. So he's got to get hot. He's got to knock him down. He does give you a little bit in the rebounding category. He does give you a little defense, but he's got to make his shots, and he's done that in 3 of the last 4 games that he's played. 2 of those he played over to 30 minutes. So, yeah, I think the opportunities are going to be there for him. He is not a guy that has the ball in his hands often. He is a catch and shoot, stand in the corner. But they do, if you watch some of the highlights for him, like they do run plays to get him shots. So he's not just the total bailout guy for them all the time either. So I think you probably go into tonight and you're playing probably both Hauser and Pritchard at 5K. I think both of that's okay here today.
Yeah, I'm okay playing both as well.
Where are you with Grady Dick, Sasser? Concher's getting a ton of love here tonight as well at 46. Anybody for some more value down here?
So I have not bought into the Grady Dick stuff, and I think it's for like pretty good reason outside of the Denver game. I do think if you remember, I believe in that Denver game there was no Gary Trent, and he went 7 for 12 from the floor. There could be a little more intrigue in Grady Dick just because Gary Trent took so many shots the other day. So it's possible.
If he doesn't, if he doesn't get double-digit shot attempts up here,
you'd be very disappointed. I feel like you'd have to be if you're like just like as an organization, right? Like, hey Grady, like you're
first round pick. We're down. Barnes, quickly, Barrett, Trent, like
dude, they're top 5.
The ball.
They're literal starting 5, right? Other than maybe No, Olynyk wasn't even starting. They're starting 5. They're down. Like Bruce Brown was coming off the bench. So like, I'm interested in what the 5th starter is. If it's Jamias Ramsey, I think we'd have to have some interest at 3,600. We saw him play in blowout scenario the other day. 22 minutes, dude. If he starts, he's gonna play. He's essentially gonna play 30 minutes at $3,600. So, I think you would have to have a little bit of interest there.
Sure. Small forward position again here. We know Tatum being out. You have LeBron at 10-2. Edwards 97 dual position eligibility. We know Jaylen Brown is in dual positional eligibility. And then you run the Leonard, George, Butler, Siakam run. Siakam cover of your playbook here today. $7,800 against Golden State. Good game last game out.
Yeah, man. He's been good. He's been really, really good. And even though it's been kind of like I've been a little disappointed in the minutes, 2 of them have been blowouts. So I can't really like nitpick there. You know that I'm getting like very picky about minutes at the end of the year because like
you want to see these guys playing 36,
yes.
and now they're all playing 32.
Yes, exactly. And you saw it in the Chicago game, but that was overtime, right? That was at DeRozan Hail Mary overtime shot. This feels like a spot you would see like 2 teams that want better playoff positioning. Like if you're Indiana, you don't want to be in the play-in game. You don't want to be playing Boston or Milwaukee in the first round, right? Like that's not maybe you're Indiana, you do want to play Milwaukee. They've had like a decent amount of success, but like what if they're in the play-in and they end up like they're the 6th seed, right? They're a half a game up on Miami and Philly. Why would they want to? I mean, you play Boston, and it's a death sentence for anybody. So, seems like you'd want to extend Siakam, even though he hasn't been extended. 3 of the last 5 games, 45 plus fantasy points, 38 plus in all 5 of his last 5. The rebounds have been great. The peripheral numbers with Halliburton struggling, John, he's been doing a lot like offensively. I mean, 25, 19, 28, 17, 18, 20, 24 points in his last 7 games. So of that tier, like I like all those guys. Like you can definitely get to LeBron. You can definitely get to well, you can't get to Tatum. You can definitely get to Jalen, PG, Kawhi. Jimmy has a vendetta against New Orleans, as his comments alluded to that. But I am prioritizing Siakam in this tier. It's the best game on the board too, like 240 essentially implied points in that one. So give me Pascal Siakam there.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, there's a couple of games here with double-digit point spreads. You know, this one shaping up to be high scoring and a bit more competitive. Gigi Jackson at $6,200. We've been talking a lot of Memphis here this week. I mean, this dude has jumped into the starting lineup and hasn't slowed down.
All gas, no brakes, right? Yeah. And dude, they don't have bodies. And now Concher's on the injury report. Scottie Pippen's on the injury report. Bane's doubtful. And now Laravia downgraded. Like it's just he's 19 years old. They're going to continue to develop this kid. 35, 44, or 37, 35, 44, 35 minutes last 4 games. 32 plus fantasy points in each. 19 actual in 4 straight games. So love GG in all formats. Can't say enough good things about him.
Sure. Anybody else down here in the 5K range for you? I mean, we have Jaquez, Kyle Anderson, Keldon, Wiggins, Herb Jones is 5K here. NEW the other day started $4,900. Anybody in this spot for you?
Yeah, I think Herbie is the one guy that's a little bit interesting, just given he's going to see mid to upper 30s minutes now that there's a shorter rotation with Ingram out. So Herb is good. Hauser, we already talked about. I mean, if everything's status quo for Minnesota, NEW should, and Jaden McDaniels as well, should play like upwards of 40 minutes in a competitive game. But we won't know that before lock. I think they're secondary. If Laravia plays, like I still have interest, especially if like Concher's out. Bane, we already know is potentially out. Yeah. He should play another 30 minutes. It's just obviously he was downgraded with an illness. That's not the best.
Sure.
I do think there's a little merit if you think Toronto can hang around. Lou Dort in Canada. He played a whole bunch of minutes, 40 fantasy points against them the first time they played. Again, overtime, but 40 fantasy points nonetheless. Ochai Agbaji, pretty much solidified to 30 minutes. No Gary Trent. Like I know, I understand your side. I do.
We might get this Agbaji,
Dude.
right? Like
it just is kind of what it is. Like they're very short-handed, and even in a game they lose by 40, and in the game prior they lose by 15. Guess what? He played 30 minutes, right? Like he's played 30 minutes now in 3 straight games.
The available shots is kind of why I hope like Jordan Nwora starts.
Yeah, agreed. I'm not and we'll get to Nwora at power forward too. I think he's one of like probably 2 to 3 candidates to start. I guess technically they could go double big and use like Kelly Olynyk at power forward, but that seems criminal because J-Dub's the
right
on the other side. But yeah, I think the Toronto OKC small forwards here are slightly interesting.
And then we'll wait on the Detroit starting lineup, obviously, but it could be interesting if like Fournier ends up cracking.
Yeah, or Troy Brown for that matter. Because
this
morning, Troy Brown was the highest rostered play of the slate. And per the update, I don't think Detroit was getting like any love. Troy Brown, 10%. He's still getting 10%, which is still a little,
We'll see. Power forward, again, a lot of guys up top here. AD now power forward eligibility at 10-3. Zion 88, Jaren Jackson 83, Porzingis dual positional eligibility. Naz Reid will see is questionable. Jalen Williams 71. They're fine. I like Triple J. He's gonna have to deal with Wemby though. Yep. Zion obviously has been very good. No Brandon Ingram now at $8,800. We talked about Siakam already here. Kuminga's been pretty good, $6,700 as well. So some decent mid-tier options for us.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good mid-tier options. And at the top as well. I don't know why AD suddenly has power forward eligibility. That's kind of not fair.
Because why not? Why not? Right?
I mean, it's kind of not fair, right? He has not played. I don't think he's probably played a minute of power forward this year. Maybe not one singular minute, but whatever. All them Zion's interesting. Obviously, no Brandon Ingram coming off a game where he turned the ball over a bunch and fouled a bunch, and they got torched. And play the gosh dang song. I can't get the gosh dang Orlando Magic. Ooh. Every time they win, they play this song, John. I wish they were good when I lived there. Like it just because it's a great environment to begin with. Like just that they're very fun, and now they have a cool song with like a good team, and it's so catchy. But yeah, big win for the Magic, but Zion, I mean, 1.5 fantasy points per minute essentially without Ingram this year. So like obviously good play. Triple J team to himself, gonna take 50,000 shots. So like if they go in, right? Like we know they can go in even with Wemby defensively. Like Jaren Jackson is not afraid to shoot the basketball. No. So if they go in for sure in tournaments. We talked about KP. He is in playing tournaments, but it's obviously risky. And right on cue, Donnie with the 3 to 4 Boston. Yes, you could play 3 to 4 Boston. They're missing 3 of their top 6 players. So you can definitely play 3 to 4. I love Jalen Williams tonight. I'm sad to see the ownership back up on Jalen Williams. I have to assume it would go down just as this. I haven't updated. Let's see what the spread is now. Stayed at 17. I'm surprised the OKC news or Gary Trent being.
Hold on. When we get the updated rostership too, we'll make sure to update that because I'm curious. Again, now no Gary Trent. Like, how does that impact that game even more, right? From an ownership perspective, just SGA was getting like 16%. Is that going to stay? With that game probably even less likely to be competitive. So,
yeah. If that game was competitive, like salute to somebody or congratulations to, or like, I mean, what are you doing to OKC?
Yeah. Do you have Hachimura any interest here?
He's been consistent. The minutes have been fine. The production's been fine, but like not for 5,700. If it was like 4,700, I'd probably consider it. I think he's about $1,000 too expensive.
Okay. We need probably LeBron out or something like that.
Yeah, we would need LeBron out. Yep.
Niang 46. We talked about Herb at 5K. Jovic at 43. Nwora's 42. Bowen. We'll see if he's starting again at 4K. I mean, What are your thoughts for value power forwards? We did talk about this extensively last night. The Jalen Smith,
We did.
Isaiah Jackson saga here.
Yes.
Isaiah Jackson playing Carlisle, telling us he played in Detroit because his family was in Detroit.
Yes.
Does that mean that Jalen Smith is now back in the rotation tonight against Golden State? Where's Jalen Smith from? Is he from Sacramento? Or Oakland, rather, right? Like, what's
Jalen Smith? You're looking it up too?
He's from Portsmouth, Virginia, so not there. So
Portsmouth, Virginia, and he went to the University of Maryland. So neither thing at play here.
Right.
I mean,
I would definitely play against the Wizards.
Yes, and to your point, like you said it, like everything points to, and that you said it on the show last night. Everything points to Jalen Smith playing. He's also getting 16% rostership, so everyone also thinks Jalen Smith is again the backup center.
Right.
If you want to go there, he's been a great fantasy point per minute guy. We've said it all year long, right? But it's just, the off chance that the mad scientist is cooking something up in the lab that he's
right.
like, oh,
I said, he could have also just seen what Isaiah Jackson did the other day. Like, oh, double with 6 assists. Like, yeah, you're in.
Yeah, you're probably sticking in. I mean, I'm okay with Jalen. I'm okay with Tosan. Agbaji Nawara, we've talked about. They're fine. I think, one of the three options Detroit has to start at power forward here is Chimezie Metu. He's pretty good on a fantasy point per minute basis, especially when it's Christmas. Maybe it's his Christmas since he has a chance to start. That's like the extent of it. I mean, I guess they could, Jalen McDaniels could re-enter the rotation for Toronto, but I don't think we need to go there.
I need Jabari Walker interest if Ayton was ruled out.
I don't know if that directly, I think that Duop Reith would be the plug because he still operates as the backup center. The only thing scary about Portland is they have not only Reith, Ibu Baji and Moses Brown.
All right.
All available now for Portland. They do not have a shortage of front court members. And I know first instinct is just jam Duop Reith into your lineup or something, but I'm a little scared by it. Jabari Walker is
played 33 minutes a couple of games ago. That's why I ask.
We've seen this all year from Jabari Walker. He plays 33 minutes and then suddenly he's down to teens or 20s, and you're like, oh, I thought he was good. What? Okay, sure. And that's kind of been my reaction to Jabari Walker all year.
Sure. Center has Wemby at 10-6. We talked about on the show this morning. He's our guy. Definitely looking to just plug in Victor Wembanyama when you can, especially against Memphis.
Who's not playing Victor Wembanyama, John?
The field. Again. But how many times has this happened? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're always talking about Wemby ownership. It never makes any sense here. So
it is funny because there are times where he's 60% rostered. And then there are times this is objectively a great spot, right? And yet he's not getting any ownership. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Bam at 89, Allen at 84. Obviously, if Minnesota is going to be without Gobert and Naz Reid, this feels like another spot where Jared Allen can go out there and give you a 20-20 game like he did against Miami when there's no Bam in that one. So be on the lookout if you can for the Minnesota starting lineup and how you approach Jared Allen here. Where else are you looking at the center position tonight?
And I was willing to go back to the DeAndre Ayton well. Zubats has definitely held him in check this year, but Ayton has been very good of late outside of the last game. Interesting that it's elbow tendonitis. I don't love the sound of that. Late ad. Chet, 7,400. Coming off the absolute nuke of all nukes that he has had this year. Can definitely get there for Chet. Another guy who went over 40 fantasy points in this first matchup.
He just had a rookie card sell for $144,000.
Good time to sell it right after he scores 18 points in the fourth and goes 35, 14, 1, 3, and 2.
Only 25 cards have ever sold for more money. NBA cards.
Yeah. Wow. Just shows the value, what people think of
Chet. The rise of Chet Holmgren right now.
Yeah, I mean, dude, and mind. I'll save it to myself. I was gonna say, no, he might be the third best player on their team. Just saying. Anyways,
he's better than Jalen Williams, but
super close. Kelly Olynyk is probably, as long as he's out of foul trouble, gonna approach 30 minutes.
Yeah, would you go Olynyk at 66 or Aldama 64?
Yeah, I mean, Aldama 64 has definitely lately had the ceiling. I would say he's also on another shorthanded team with potential for even. I mean, he might play. This
game's actually expected to be a bit more competitive.
Sure, he might need to, and he might have to play 40 minutes. Like,
right.
There might not be a choice if like LaRavia and Contra rolled out. Like, they just won't
or
have
just sick, or
just sick. Yeah,
active but sick.
Yeah. So I definitely think Aldama is in play. Horford out. If they do start Cornette at 46, he played 28 minutes in the Detroit game, 26.5 fantasy points. I mean, just look at every game he's extended in. It's just like, it's solid.
He is the backup center tonight. At minimum.
Yes.
So there's going to be at least 20 minutes for him, I would imagine.
With the chance to start.
Yeah. And if they are limiting Porzingis like we think they may be, there's definitely the run there for him.
Right. If Porzingis cap is 28 and they don't essentially use anyone else at center, well, that means you're guaranteed at least 20 from Cornette, right? And then depending on what else they decide to do,
because they're not afraid to go double big in some rotations.
They're not. No, they're not. Larry Nance didn't have a good game yesterday. Was just not. I mean, fourth quarter was what it was. He didn't really play. Anytime there's a blowout, he doesn't play. He doesn't get extended in blowouts. But he had been really good in the games prior. If you want to end on Nance, Jonte Porter is not sick, not on the injury report, so he'll be again probably in the 20s in terms of minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then, do you have a different opinion on Duop Reith? I mean, he is absolutely free. So,
I mean, he has been the plug all season long, though. When
he has been
out, it's been Duop Reith unless he himself was out. So I have to assume he's the guy that would go in.
Obviously, pretty big news because you could get a $3,500 Duop Reith at really low ownership, depending on the rest of your roster construction.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure there was some like good late exposure to the Lakers, and
well, the problem is that he's $3,500, so there's an obvious pivot around. You'd have to
there has to be a two. It's a two.
It's probably a 2 or 3 man swap, right? To figure out that lineup. So
yeah, and that's a little uncomfortable.
Yeah,
because there is a lot of early exposure that we'd want.
Agreed. Chris needs a $4,200 forward. So
I mean, likely will come from the 7 p.m. window.
I mean,
right?
Jordan Nwora is $4,200. So
there's infinite options in the 7 p.m. window. Nwora, Agbaji, Tosan if he's starting again, Metu if he's starting again,
Fournier if he starts,
Fournier if he gets a start. I mean, there's a lot of potential starters down here. So I think let's not
Dort.
You don't need, Dort. I mean, we don't need to commit on one. I think we would both agree if Nwora started, he would be number 1 for us.
Yeah, probably.
And he's just a bucket.
And he's in. They're so shorthanded. I don't see a reason for him really to come off the floor. So, but we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. Let's build a lineup. Where do you want to start things here? We talked Boston earlier.
Derek White.
Are you doing 3? White, Pritchard, Hauser?
White, Pritchard, Hauser. Yeah.
Okay. Toronto?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, play Nwora at power forward, and then if he's not starting, we could always just play Agbaji.
Sure.
For $100 cheaper. Wembanyama at center. I don't disagree, Chris, but also Trent just being out, I mean, there's just so much availability for everything. Shots, minutes. I mean, there's just no shortage of anything they're down there starting 5. So
let's do double up on On some Pelicans there.
Orlando Magic. Oh, that's all I got on my mind. Yeah, I'm good with the Pelicans there.
Okay. White, Hauser, Jackson, Nora, Wemby, Pritchard, Jones, and Murphy. $300 left over. Example lineup for everybody there. We do like Boston with all those guys out. Where we said in the beginning, we're paying up for Wemby tonight against Memphis. And obviously, G. Jackson's been almost unstoppable for Memphis on the other side of that game. No Bane and maybe more missing pieces there. And then no Ingram tonight. So Murphy will start. Jones plays minutes anyway. So there's an example lineup. Grande's got your playbook. He'll have your updates as lineup news comes across, which, again, we're an hour away. All we got was the Boston news, which is, I guess, good and bad. That was definitely a big piece of tonight, but we would have liked to get a little more information on the slate. So make sure you're in the Discord and have those notifications turned on so we can update you before roster lock. Good luck, everybody, this weekend. We'll be back Monday. We'll talk to you then.